All right. I think we have Alyssa on from Earth Force to introduce things.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I was hanging out backstage just waiting for everything to begin there. Welcome to Environmental Action Civics Week. We are here for likely my favorite event of the week. We are here for the youth panel, Sharing Power, Youth Influence in Environmental Action. We're so pleased to have you all here today. I want to welcome our panelists. We have Mila, homeschooled and owner of Beaded in Pennsylvania. We have Amelia, DPS Students for Climate Action, Colorado. Elena is here with us from New Visions Environmental Sciences at BOCES and a member of Local Environmental Advisory Committee in New York. And we have Bridget, a senior at Alexandria City High School, Virginia, and on the Earth Force Board of Directors. So welcome to all of you. And throughout this event, we are going to be having comments and questions that you're going to see pop up. If you're watching right now, feel free to go into the comment section and share those comments out. And we will be posting those whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or watching directly here on StreamYard. We will be able to show your, there you go. We're practicing here. We'll be able to show your comments. Thanks, Mila. All right, and then we're so pleased today to have our moderator with us, Lauren Gibson. And Lauren is a PhD who serves as the first ever advisory on youth engagement to the NOAA administration. How cool is that? In this role, she leads the agency's efforts to bring youth perspectives into agency decision making while also working to smooth out NOAA career pathways for young professionals. She firmly believes that young people are some of NOAA's most important stakeholders and most powerful potential collaborators, both now and in the future. Prior to working with the administrator, Lauren worked in NOAA's Office of Education starting in 2018 as the, and Lauren, I had a note to ask you how to say this, Marine Policy Fellow?
Knaus. It's one of those where you actually
Knaus.
pronounce the K before the
Okay.
N.
All right. Knaus. I wouldn't have said that. Thank you. And then serving as a contractor focused on youth engagement, congressional outreach, and communications until early 2023. And we had the pleasure of working with Lauren as a contractor too. Quite a pleasure. She earned her PhD from North Carolina State University, studying what drives high school students to take different scales of environmental action, from things like littering to picking up litter to collective actions like advocating for local policy change at city council meetings. She earned her master's in environmental communication and her bachelor's degree in earth systems, both from Stanford University. So Lauren, thank you so much for being here. And with that, I will turn it over to you and exit the stage so that you all can continue your conversation. Thanks so much for being here, everybody.
Thanks, Alyssa, and thanks to Earth Force for organizing this. Environmental Action Civic Week is always such a cool event, and I am super honored to be sharing the virtual stage with these four wonderful individuals today. I would love to kick things off just by hearing from each of you what inspired you to get involved with environmental action. How did you start your journey in this space? And I'll ask if you're ready to answer the question, go ahead and unmute, and I'll go ahead and call on you. Bridget, go ahead. Start us off.
So I wasn't directly looking to get involved with environmental science, but my 7th grade biology classroom was rotting from the inside out, as were a number of other rooms in my school building, because we had high levels of toxic mold. There were mushrooms growing out of the wall right next to my seat, and a bunch of other similar issues. And so a bunch of my classmates and I worked together through Earth Force's Caring for Our Watersheds program when we were like 12, 13, 14-ish. And we decided to advocate for a change in state law in order to get our school district to remediate the mold and to secure some funding from the state in order to do that, and also to protect other students across Virginia from toxic mold in their classrooms.
That's massive. Love hate to hear that there was molds and mushrooms growing out of your walls, but love to hear that youth action was an effective way of addressing that, and excited to hear more about that later in the panel. Who else is ready to introduce themselves and their story? Yeah, Amelia, go ahead.
My name is Amelia, and similarly to Bridget, I kind of got involved in 7th grade when our science teacher showed us an Al Gore video. You know, Al Gore always has that sort of way of talking that really pushes you into action. And so I kind of just started with like small changes and small actions until in 8th grade during remote learning, I got involved with DPS Students for Climate Action to enact a for one of a kind climate policy in Denver Public Schools.
That's amazing. I'm excited to hear more about that policy. We'll come back to that after we've given a chance for our other two panelists to introduce themselves. Elena, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Elena. I suppose for me, it was kind of really early in my childhood, actually. One of my grandmothers was on the board of trustees for the local nature preserve, and the other one lived on a dead-end street that led to a creek. So we'd frequently go on walks through that, and I'd pick up various little things, usually pieces of broken bricks or glass that was thrown in. Actually, I do not have it with me. I wish I did, but I found an old no war pin, like it almost looked 60s era based on the rust and sediment. Glad nobody stepped on it. But I guess it was really early in my childhood.
Yeah, it sounds like that was a formative experience, growing up and spending time around places that had trash like that scattered around and trying to figure out what to do with that. Thanks for sharing that. Mila, go ahead.
I'm Mila, and my journey started when my mom and I became members of UTC, a urban farm in Philadelphia, about 4 years ago. And we have been members ever since. The farm is now called NLPP, short for Neighborhood Land Power Project. Though some of the things that they want to explore have changed, the main idea is still there. I was inspired to help my neighborhood by giving them fresh produce, but I was also inspired to change the world, even if it meant one step at a time.
I love that. And I'm so excited to hear the steps that you all have been taking in your own communities on these different topics that got you interested in being an environmental action person to begin with. Apologies if my dog makes an appearance. So with that being said, I would love to go around and hear about any particular projects or initiatives where you felt like young people have made a big difference in environmental policies or practices in your experience, right? Like, what have you seen that has made a difference in terms of youth voice? Anyone feeling ready to take that one, Amelia?
In regards to youth voice, I think people should recognize that youth are in the forefront of movements to shape school district policy or resolution. It's sometimes referred to as like policies or resolutions, depending on the school district. Anyhow, youth such as the students in DPS and countless other districts have advocated, campaigned, gone to public comment, sent emails, like made a petition, and just go through the whole long process of trying to work with adults, which most of the time is pretty hard to do, to tell them, hey, like, we want this, we want you to commit to these goals and commit to a better future, because frankly the school districts have the responsibility of preparing students for the world that they will inherit. So they have the responsibility of not only teaching them about climate change and other environmental issues, but providing the environments, and solar panels, and renewable energy and electric buses. So yeah, I'm hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. Appreciate you sharing that. Other examples of youth voice making a big difference? Yeah, Bridget.
So like I said earlier, my friends and I, when we were like 12, 13, 14-ish, got Virginia's state law changed because there was mold in our middle school. But the reason that happened is because we went and we spoke up and we told the adults what we were seeing. We did research about it, and we figured out why so many of us were feeling sick. It's because we were surrounded by toxic mold, and some of our teachers were getting sick, but they hadn't been able to get anything done. It wasn't actually until the youth stepped up and we started looking at the adults around us and we asked for help, and then Virginia state law got changed in order to fix it for us.
That's a pretty great example of literally the law changing because of youth voice. That's massive. That's great. Mila, what do you think?
I feel like sustainable fashion and upcycling, like thrift shopping, it's good for the earth, which will end up being great for everyone in the end, especially animals. Thrift shopping is like giving another life to a piece of clothing, a book, a pair of shoes, toys, or even jewelry, and you can help it by keeping it out of landfills, which also impact the earth a lot. And in the end, it's just an amazing way to spend your money, and it's actually really fun.
Nice. I appreciate that, Mila. Yeah, that's definitely a direction that I feel like a lot of young people are going as they move forward. So that's great. Let's see, Elena, do you have any thoughts on that one? Any examples of young people making a big difference that you've seen?
Unfortunately, locally, the government doesn't seem to listen to even the adults. A lot of the committee meetings for pretty much everything are held in the middle of the school day, generally on a Wednesday. So pretty much nobody but the retired people who only care about property values and taxes can attend. So a lot of things are going backwards in the environmental respect around here. Yeah, it's not.
That's really tough. That's super tough. Yeah, I feel like that's a great example of why we need to make active choices about meeting people where they are, physically, time-wise, otherwise, to make sure that we have a government that's representative of the people that it's supposed to represent. So that's huge. Trying to find times that are accessible to folks, making sure that if you're meeting over meal times, that food is provided or childcare is provided, those sorts of things. It's a really great point that you bring up, Elena. Thanks for bringing that up. So kind of on the same thread of what has been effective, what examples have you seen of young voice being effective? I would love to hear what tools or methods that you all have found effective in your work to gain the attention of decision makers. What tools have you used that have actually been able to get the attention of these adults in power or these people in power? Mila, I see that you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, I think social media is pretty powerful, and there are a lot of programs and other kids out there doing it. Sadly, I don't do social media, but I still find a way to get attention of decision makers by asking questions, a lot of questions. I demand to be involved in decisions that are being made, especially for my well-being, because a lot of times these days, grown-ups are owners of big companies are making decisions, especially for kids, and they're not getting the kids thought of it. Like if they're making like a phone or something, what if it's not safe for the kids? What if there could be a lot of unsafe things that the kids could do? And they're like Bark. That's a program my mom and I do. It's a way to help kids be safe, and with that program, it's actually interviewing kids and asking what would be best for them. So I feel like demanding to be involved in things, so you get your input on it, is really important.
That's a really great point, and I think you also made a great point with working with your mom or working with other folks. Love the intergenerational approaches to making change. Bridget, do you have anything there?
Yeah, emails are great, actually. They still seem sometimes super intimidating as I'm writing them, but honestly, it works really well. And like you'd be surprised. I know my friends and I were how much politicians and decision makers actually really like hearing from their young constituents, and frequently the best way to reach them is just through sending an email. I recently got a chance to reconnect with the state senator who helped my friends and I with our mold legislation, and he commented on how refreshing it is for him and his colleagues to hear from passionate youth. Always remember there are a ton of people in all levels of government who do really want to hear youth voices. They just don't always know how to seek them out, and so sometimes just making that first step yourself and reaching out to them, inviting them into your classroom to see a presentation, which is what my friends and I did, or sending them an email with questions or voicing your opinions on things, can have a much bigger impact than you think it will.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, taking the first step and finding those people who do really care, because they are out there, despite what it might sometimes feel like. Really good point. Elena, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Another good way to get the attention of other young people and turn them towards environmental action is to basically make it a game. Like, peer pressure can be used in good ways too, making them do things that are actually convincing them to do things that are actually helpful to themselves, the people around them, and the environment at large.
Make it fun. I love it. Yes. Amelia, what do you think?
Yeah, so in regards to DPS Students for Climate Action, the whole process of like getting the school board's attention in the first place, it was really hard just going to their monthly meetings during public comment and just talking to them through a computer for like 3 or so minutes. It was a really passive way, and it kind of felt like they were ignoring us because they would say, "Oh, thank you, next," and then the next person would talk, but nothing would actually get done. And so we ended up emailing each board member and meeting with them personally. And then at the end of the meeting, we would say, "Okay, do we have your support? And we'll add you to our website with your picture." All of them said yes, and that really brought like the personal connection to it, and we got to say our stories. And really, when you're trying to enact change and you wanted decision makers to pay attention to you, really like make it personal. And I really like the point that Bridget made on emails. Like I like email my representatives like almost every day through a app that like anyone can download right now. It's called Climate Action Now. So Climate Action Now, written I can just send, and it really takes like 2 minutes a day. And if you can, go to the Capitol, testify, because like I've gone to the Capitol, and it's really that sentiment. Like I've seen like young people here, like I never see young people.
That's awesome. I love all of those examples, and that you have you talked about different scales of taking action, right? From emailing, which you can do from your phone, to showing up on Capitol Hill and talking to people in person. Love all of these ideas. We've got social media. We've got just send a cold email. I spend most of my workday sitting on email, so agreed. That's a great way to reach me. Talking about making things fun, talking about showing up and having that personal connection with people to make a difference. I love all of that. Thank you. I would also really like to hear about kind of successful instances of working across generations to create change. We've heard a little bit, bits and pieces from you all about partnerships with parents, with teachers, with local government officials. I would love for each of you to talk about a successful instance of collaboration between older and younger generations, and kind of what you think was the magic that made it actually successful. What characteristics did it have there? I know it's a big question.
Yeah,
Bridget, go for it.
The common thread between all of the really successful interactions that I've had with adults, be that asking the mayor to put us in the legislative package, or talking to our legislative director about how one goes about getting a state law passed, or talking to a state senator about actually proposing a bill and doing that sort of thing. The most successful interactions come from when the student is willing to put themselves out there, and the adult and do the scary thing, and which is speaking to the adult, and the adult, whether they realize or not that the kid is doing something scary, is willing to listen. Adults don't always realize that kids can be a little bit intimidated when we're trying to do these things as youth. But frequently, many of them are willing to listen if you just look at them and say, hey, I have this thing that I feel really passionately about. I've done my research. I'd like to talk to you about X or Y. Can you help me with Z? Frequently, they're willing. I've found that there are a number of them that are willing to listen, and when they listen, that is frequently when and they try to be helpful. That is frequently when the interaction goes the most successfully.
That's super good insight. Yeah. Other thoughts or examples of intergenerational partnerships? Yeah, Mila, go ahead.
I haven't been in a lot, sadly. What I have noticed is that there aren't as many intergeneration programs as much as there are age-specific programs, and I'd love to see more of that, because like Bridget said, I feel like that is really important, especially for people who think they're too old for something, or for kids like us thinking we're too young for something, or having other people tell us we're too young/old for something. So I feel like we need more of that.
That's a really great point, Mila. Thank you for sharing that. Elena, Amelia, any thoughts on this one? Go ahead, Amelia.
I totally hear what Mila said about, like, it's imperative that adults and youth like collaborate in such an existential crisis we're facing, everyone, no matter how you are. And you can't get anything if everybody isn't together, in my opinion. And with DPS Students for Climate Action, the person who actually had the idea for this was a parent, and she contacted some local high schools, and then we came together. And her name is Heather Bird Jackson. She's amazing. And I think what really made this partnership between her and other adults successful with us, the students, is that she would guide us and give us advice for things, but she wouldn't override the student leadership. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be like an adult with student-led organizations, because that is like perilous. Like you have to have, because then you don't get that guidance, you don't get that wisdom that adults have. So that's why we have to work together, but at the same time making sure that students are at the forefront of like the movement and doing the work. But that's, and if you're a parent or teacher or adult watching right now, there is more on this in our toolkit. Just go to dpsclimateaction.org/toolkit.
Love it. Love it. Yes, definitely need all hands on deck when dealing with big things like the climate crisis and environmental justice issues and everything. Love that. Love that. Thank you, Amelia. Elena, did you have anything to add on that one?
As I said before, there has been unfortunate little collaboration even between adults in the area. So, I mean, there has been apparently the spot I've taken now on the Environmental Advisory Committee has been in previous years filled by other students in the New Visions program. But that's about it.
Yeah, it's tough too sometimes if it's just one position on an advisory committee. It can feel lonely, and it, yeah, can be hard to be taken seriously if the adults aren't ready to partner with youth in a really authentic way. That's really tough. Yeah, Bridget, do you have thoughts?
I did, but I've lost my train of thought. I was mostly going to say that to anyone out there listening, if you feel like that's your situation, I know I certainly had some moments like that in my own journey. That is the beauty of our federalist system, right? We have a ton of different levels of government, and there frequently is someone who is willing to listen. It just sometimes takes a little bit more effort to figure out who that person might be, where they are, and what their influence is, and what they can do to help you.
Yeah, really great point. Find those allies, find those co-conspirators. Awesome. Great. So my next question for the group is around scaling of environmental policies and topics. Have you been involved in any efforts to influence local, national, global environmental policies? Kind of what was your approach? What were the outcomes? So kind of about policy at all different scales. Bridget, I know we heard a little bit about your policy. Do you want to kick things off?
Sure. So, like I've said a couple times, I helped get a state law passed in Virginia. We did that mostly through a lot of public outreach. We had a petition and we went door to door for a while. And we emailed our state senators, and we spoke to a number of stakeholders in our school district and a number of other people who would be impacted by this to get their support, collect signatures. And honestly, just face-to-face interactions with people works really, really well. One of my favorite stories that I love to tell about this is as a 12, 13-year-old, I did not know the face of my city's mayor. And so I went right up to him unknowingly with my petition, and I gave him my spiel about the mold in our middle school and how terrible it was, and that we were looking to get into the city's legislative package to help us have more support when the bill went to the state capitol. And he looked at me and he's like, "You do know you're talking to the mayor, right?" And I was like, and then he laughed and said, and signed the petition and said, "Congratulations, kid, you just got into the legislative package." And so sometimes things happen on accident if you just go out there and do it. Fortune favors the bold, they say. But a lot of that luck we created too, because we reached out to everyone that was involved in the passage of a bill from the city level to the state, one way or another, that we were in the district of, and that's really how things happened. It's so much easier than you think it is.
I love that. I feel like that ties in really nicely with Amelia's point on making those personal connections. You know, that real genuine grassroots connection can make a big difference. And who knows, maybe you'll accidentally pitch to the mayor. That's amazing. Mila, what do you have to say on this one?
I know I'm really interested in law. I want to be a lawyer when I grow up. I wrote a letter to the city council asking them to support the urban farms in Philly, including NLPP, and to help add more, making the city a better place for everyone. Because one thing I've noticed, and my mom has noticed, and a couple of other people who help run the farm have noticed, is that not everyone knows all these resources, and not everyone is able to reach these resources because the origin of a farm is like in a suburban area, but we need more places where they're in the city so people can just come by, and if they need something, they can get it. That's another thing. People sometimes don't have good produce because sometimes at the supermarket, sometimes it's really expensive, or sometimes it goes bad really quickly. So we need more urban farms. And I'm excited to do more environmental change programs, though for a lot of them I'm too young. So I'll have to wait a little bit for some of them. But yeah, I think the city council can help us a lot with making more urban farms and having resources for all. So it's more, so it's easier to reach.
That's great. And I love that even though you might be too young for some of the formal programs, clearly you're also already making a difference in what you're doing. So keep at it. It's super great. Super, super great. Any other thoughts on this one? Approaches to making a change through policy, Amelia?
Well, yeah, just like reiterating kind of like what Bridget said. Um, we we did all this grassroots campaigning to get this policy passed in DPS, and really the secret sauce is persistence and showing up and just like never giving up, right? Um, in the end, the policy was unanimously passed, and that summer it was passed on Earth Day Eve 2022. And that summer there was a lot of stakeholder meetings to decide what would be on that climate action plan. And just on the climate action plan briefly, there are three 2050 goals, one of which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 90% by 2050 from 2010 levels. And from those three 2050 goals are a multitude of 5-year goals, which I will not go into. But so DPS is like, I'm pretty sure one of 9 school districts in the nation that actually have a climate action plan. And again, like if you're a student right now and you want to do something like this, go to our toolkit. But afterwards, we got a bunch of like press attention. We applied for a Environmental Protection Agency award. We got the award, went to Washington, D.C. The vice president came to Denver. But really, this is just the start. And passing the policy is just the first step. We actually have to implement it now. So yeah, just be persistent and you'll reach your goal.
Love that. It's amazing. Elena, do you have anything to add to this one on the policy front?
Last year, there was actually a new policy passed around here of no mow May. Apparently it's becoming more commonplace than it was previously. There was very little in the way of public outreach before before they decided to implement the policy, I suppose is the best word for it. And there was actually quite a lot of, I think there was one singular article in the local newspaper, and there was quite a lot of response to it. I can't even remember how many people applied, but they actually overloaded the website to sign up for it. It crashed, and they had to put it back up the next day. And it's looking like we're setting up to do that again.
That's super cool. That'll certainly a show of how much demand there is then, if you're crashing the website. Nice. Awesome. So I know that we have a variety of folks tuning in from different perspectives, different ages, different generations. I would love to hear you all talk to the young people who are in the audience right now. What advice do you have for those young audience members who want to get involved, but feel like they might not have the experiences or the resources to make a difference? What advice do you have? What would you say to them?
I would say that you don't lack the experience and resources because you don't actually need that much stuff generally, and it doesn't require prior experience or too many resources really to create change. Honestly, we did our yes, absolutely to that in the comments. Your lived experiences count as experience. But my 7th grade class and I, most of us had never done a presentation outside of the occasional presentation speaking assignment to a class. And then suddenly we found mold, and we found mold, proved it through our science fair, which was again not terribly complicated, not terribly. I mean, we did get a testing kit, but the science fair thing isn't the point. We hadn't done much presentational things or anything. None of us really knew what we were doing. We had Earth Force to help us, which again, there's toolkit links in the comments section and other things like that. But really, all that's important is reaching out and speaking. We created a Google account, a Gmail account for our little advocacy group that we created, and we made a Google slideshow to show to people, and we invited them into our classroom. And that's how this started. It was a group of 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds with no prior experience who were passionate about something. And we learned as we went. But you don't need experience. You don't need too many resources. You just need your own lived experiences, what you're seeing. So some internet research is helpful, and passion. That's really it. Anyone can do this, even if it looks scary and sometimes can be very nerve-inducing. Don't be intimidated by that. Just get out there and do it. Honestly, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
Love it. Other advice for the young listeners tuning in? Amelia.
Yeah, the only antidote to climate anxiety is action. Like, don't wait. You got this. You have a voice. You're a leader. You're important. And just as Bridget was saying, um, nothing will get done. No one will do the work for you if you don't take action. So, um, like, you don't need prior experience. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment, because as long as it's your calling, you will find a way.
I just wanted to underline and highlight what you just said, that the only antidote to climate anxiety is climate action. To be a social science nerd for a minute, there are studies that show that people can, that it is an antidote, right? That climate action, especially collective climate action taken in a group, really does make a difference with climate anxiety and your feelings about the state of the world when you work together to create a positive change. So thanks for that, Amelia. Other advice?
Yes. You don't exactly need experience. I mean, unless you're doing something where it's like surgery, then you're gonna need experience. But otherwise, for this, no experience is needed. Just you being you. All really is needed is practice, and others helping you. I found that when I talk about how I make profit from my business, or about how environmental changes can help the earth a lot, I talk to my mom and I talk to my family um, about how I can reach different people and how I can make a change. One thing is that if you care about something and you want to change it, then speak up. Um, People will not hear you if you don't talk, and some people might not care if you still speak up, but still, it's worth a try, and it's worth you putting your input out on the world. And don't let other people tell you that you have to wait until you're adult. I have a small jewelry business and I'm a writer. And if there's something that makes you happy and that you know that you can accomplish and that you can use to change the world, or even to help a small little thing, then do it. Yeah.
Love that, Mila. Other thoughts, advice, Elena?
It really is as simple as going outside, taking a walk, or even just writing an email. Pick up litter as you go. Get the attention of people who can actually do something on a grander scale, or even just convince your friends to jump into a local water body with you to pull trash out of it. You don't need experience for most of it. You don't need access. You can literally just have a device and access to the internet and be doing something. You don't need much. You don't need experience. It's easy.
Go ahead, Mila. Do you have something to add there?
Adding on to what Elena said, yeah, it's really important. Even if it's a small little thing, it's gonna have a big difference. And like Elena said and Bridget said, especially making a small email to someone who you know has power over something is gonna be important. I recently just finished a book. There was a lot of plot details, but one of the main things was this character. She wanted to go to the White House and do an internship, and one of the internships was with one of the council people, and she wanted to rock the internship, get like do the interview, be able to do it, and all she needed was confidence in herself. and a little bit of knowledge of what she was signing up for. Another thing is if you want to do something and it's something where you're going to need knowledge and you can't just step right into it, it's important to get a little bit of insight of what it is to make sure you understand it fully and that you can be able to do it without having to step out of it for a little bit and work on it more. But yeah, you all got this. It's really easy and it's important to do, even if it's small thing, it's really important.
Go ahead, Amelia.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to Amelia about like just knowing like what you're signing up for. So guys, burnout is real. So like if you're going to sign up to a million organizations, maybe like think twice, because as a person myself who's like a perfectionist and just like wants to save the world and like just wants to do everything on top of school, it's really hard. And so if you're passionate about this and you know you want to take action, make sure you're in a group. Like, make sure you have someone behind you so that so if you burn to a crisp, there's someone behind you and they can continue the movement. But really try not to burn yourself to a crisp. Like, really recognize your boundaries and don't take every opportunity, please. There will be a lot of opportunities, but focus on one thing at a time. Know your boundaries. Say no, and just recognize that, especially being an activist, like burnout is real. And yes, take action. Yes, be passionate, but you don't want to go to like an extreme, like I do sometimes, where it's just too much. So yeah.
Last thing, adding on to what Amelia said again, burnout, like she said, burnout is real. And like I did a 100 book challenge last year. I'm a big reader, and I thought that was really important for me. What the thing was, it was just a random book challenge. No one made it for me. I just made it myself, and it was like no prize at the end. It was just read 100 books by the end of the year, and then you're done. But the thing is, I homeschool, but still, sometimes I wouldn't get all my work done. Or sometimes I'd put reading first and then school second. School is first, even before reading. Make sure you do school because school is going to help you be able to do the things you want to do. Because how would I be able to do reading if I didn't go to school? So, make sure you, like Amelia said, make sure you don't get burnt out and make sure you stick with one thing, because I used to be an ice hockey player, stopped that for a while because there was a lot going on and I needed a little bit of a break. And also, it's fine if you need to stop something for a while because you need a break. And make sure to take that, make sure to take care of yourself. Yeah, like Elena said, remember to take a step back. Definitely important to know what level you're at without working yourself too much, because the brain will malfunction if you work on it too hard. Even how amazing it is, it will malfunction if you work on it too hard.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I love most about the Earth Force method, which is that it engages frequently an entire classroom at a time or a small team. Caring for watersheds in particular is almost never the Caring for Watersheds competition that Earth Force does is almost never individual students taking on a project on their own. It's a team effort, because that many hands make light work, as they say. My friends and I never could have gotten nearly as many signatures on our petitions as we did, and giving our presentations would have been so much harder if we'd tried to do it on our own. And so the best advice I can give to anyone getting ready to do anything in any activism space anywhere is to do it with a team. Find other people like who think like you do, or who don't think like you do, but who also agree that this cause is important, and work with them. Whether you find them in a club after school, or just in a classroom, or maybe they're your neighbor down the street. I don't know. What's important is that you find them and you work with them, so that you're not doing it alone, and you're not trying to take on something that is too big for any one person, because movements don't happen just by one person, right? One person can start it, but unless you have other people working with you, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, adding on to what Bridget said, this is the last thing, but I think we all think this is really important. Working by yourself is nice because you get to pick what you want to do. You get to pick the resources you're going to have. You get to pick the topic. You get to pretty much decide everything with still the boundaries that you have, whether it's for school or for an after school program, for a whole another thing. And if you're someone like me who likes to work by themselves, that's awesome. That's a great skill to have. But also for those who work with others a lot, it's also important to work by yourself, because you want to make sure you have enough leadership in yourself where when you don't have help from someone else, you still know how to handle it. And the same for people who work by themselves. You need to work with other people to build relationships, to build esteem, to knowing how to work with other people, and without blocking them out of the ideas, and still sort of being a leader, but also being to decide so other people can go in. Because I know one thing, that being one person having full ownership over a project that everyone is doing is not fun. So you need to make sure that you are letting other people join in, and you need to make sure you're doing it also by yourself too. So it's a mix of everything. It's confusing at first, very confusing at first, but once it really is all practice, working with others, working by yourself, knowing what you want to do, not burning yourself out, taking a step back. It's all of these things combined, and in the end, you're going to have something that's going to be really good, and people are going to be paying you for it, or going to be giving you stuff for it, and they're going to want to listen. So it might seem at first that people don't want to listen, but people will listen in the end.
Amelia, do you have one more thing to add?
Yeah, just last thing, just like, again, like Mila said, like, find that balance. Yeah, it might be a struggle at first because you might not have experience, but the more you practice, the more you'll find that balance, and the better you'll be at it. And like, regardless of the struggle, will always be worth it at the end. And you won't have climate anxiety, frankly. And so, like, personally, like, I used to be like co-president of DPS Students for Climate Action like a few months ago, but I was kind of taking leadership of all the projects and not delegating, and just my leadership was pretty poor, and so I had to step down, and that's totally okay. Just, again, find that balance, and put yourself first, put school first, because, like, if you're not sustainable with yourself, how are you supposed to fight for a sustainable future?
Yeah, last thing for sure. This is the last thing. Like Amelia said, you want to make sure you have a balance. And oh, now I forgot what I was going to say. You want to make sure you have a balance. And yeah, you want to make sure you have a balance, and you also want to make sure that you're not pushing yourself to an uncomfortable limit. Yes, pushing yourself to an uncomfortable limit for some things is really important, because you got to face your fears, and even if it's not comfortable at first, usually at the end it is. Speaking from experience, I have social anxiety, And the book I'm writing is about social anxiety and how it can make a big difference, and also how there needs to be more programs where kids know how to socialize better or to speak in front of crowds better. I know this panel thing wasn't easy for me. I had to write a script of what I was going to say before this. But really, I think it's knowing what limit you're at, but still going over it a little bit and making sure you're comfortable, but still a teeny bit uncomfortable. It's all confusing. It's like a mix and match of everything, but it's really important, and in the end, it'll be awesome.
That's a great place to wrap up. Thank you, all of our panelists, for your insights. Loved being in conversation with you today. And I'm going to take 1 second of moderator privilege to say, after just hearing about all of the ways that these wonderful panelists have suggested that young people might start their journeys, I also want to highlight that in each piece of advice, there was also a piece of advice for the adults who support young people. That you have the ability and the responsibility as someone who supports a young person to check after their mental health. Make sure that they are indeed putting school first and not burning themselves out. Also, that you have the power to make a big difference by being one of those allies or adult supporters who is willing to listen, who is genuinely willing to relinquish some of your power to lend it to somebody else who might not usually have a seat at the table. So adults, don't underestimate your role and your power in uplifting youth voices, in making room for young people at the table, sharing your power. So thank you all, young people, adults, panelists, Earth Force, for everything that you do. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm going to hand it over to Haley to close things out.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure to sit here and listen to you all. This is one of the events we look forward to every year as a staff, personally, because we love to hear directly from young change makers like yourself. It's interesting. We've had a couple of panels already this week with wonderful educators and people in this field. I don't know if anyone has brought up the idea of like human first self-care during this process of changing the world. So leave it to young people to do that very important step of looking after yourself. So thank you for kind of ending on that note. We're all humans first here at Earth Force, so that really resonates. As I mentioned before, this event is part of the 2024 Environmental Action Civics Week. So we have lots of other events planned tomorrow and Friday. Particularly tomorrow, we have a showcase of student action in the Chesapeake Bay through the program that Bridget was involved in, Caring for Watersheds. That's at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be really exciting to see all these projects that the young people have been working on. You can find tickets to that. It's all free, but you can grab your RSVP at earthforce.org/EAC week, which Alyssa has put in the comments here. If you're an adult practitioner of this work, Environmental Action Civics and Young People Making Change, consider joining our brand new online community of practice. It's a really exciting, member-driven, dynamic space for the people doing this work. The link is in the chat, or you can again visit our website, earthforce.org. And finally, please check the chat to answer a few questions to give us some feedback on this event. We always want to know what our audience is feeling, what they like about this, dislike, suggestions for the future. And you'll be entered into a drawing to win a $25 gift card as a little incentive. So once again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you to our panelists and Lauren, wonderful job moderating. Thank you, and we'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Bye, everyone.